Welcome everyone. You are with me, Lorraine Chai, on another episode of the Solo to Entrepreneurs show, where we educate and share insights of any solo entrepreneurs in their transition into entrepreneurships. So there are many ways of becoming a business owner, from taking over a family business to starting from scratch. But we can also be a business owner by buying over businesses. Today, I have Cissy Ma, who is an expert in the industry. So welcome, Cissy.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me to the call, to the Zoom. Yes.
No problem, no problem. Now, can you share with all of us and all of the listeners in terms of who you are and how long have you been in the industry of selling and buying businesses?
Sure. Thanks, Lorraine. Yes, as you said, I've been in the industry do what we call it mergers and acquisitions to help either do acquisition of businesses or help others buy and sell businesses. I have been in the industry for 28 years now, and I have done more than $17 billion worth of transactions. And I've done, small as a couple $1 million, as large as $5 billion in transactions. So all 20 plus industries, and I've done it from the buy side and sell side. So bought in companies and sold companies as well.
So what got you interested in the whole process or the whole industry of buying and selling businesses?
Well, I have to say that I almost fell into it because I guess when I was doing my master's, honors and masters, I did master of financial management, and in there were subjects about mergers and acquisitions, and subjects about corporate finance, about weighted average cost of capital and stuff like that. And that got me really interested, and so I applied for a number of jobs, but one of them who actually invited me to for a number of interviews was Queensland Treasury Corporation. And it was a funny story. I almost missed that interview because I was in a exhibition I was doing. I was entrepreneurial even when I was doing university studies. I brought 85 people from China, the most wealthiest people back then, to come to Australia, and we went around Australia to do an exhibition of artifacts, antique, replicated antiques and drawings and paintings and calligraphies, Chinese calligraphies back in the 1990s. And so when they called me for my interview, I was actually in the event. I couldn't, when I called them back, they said, "Oh, sorry, Cissy, we don't think you got through." I said, "Can you please check?" Because the head of the area actually left a message on my phone. And back then the mobile phone was still quite rare, but I did have one. So they finally got through and said, "Oh, so glad that we actually got through this." And so I started working there and started, dealing $1 billion cross-border leases in the US to Australia, Netherlands to Australia, and other, cross-border transactions, back in the 1990s. That's the start of it. Yeah. So, and then I realized that I really loved what this particular area is, because you
Mm.
actually get across so many different industries and so many businesses, and it is a high pressure business when you actually are in the transaction. But leading up to the transaction, there's a lot of due diligence. There's a lot of work that you have to do. But it's learning new things, learning new industries, and yeah. So that's what why I've kept on going like that. Yeah. So 28 years
Wow.
later, and
Yeah,
I started my own
interesting.
business. I started my solo business back in 2018. Yeah. So 6 years ago, and
Right.
now I've basically got I'm helping. I think I'm doing um, a, quite a dozen or so different clients, helping them with, either buy businesses or sell businesses and
And
or
that's the
merge
thing, like
online.
it's like that's a really interesting story. And that's the thing with a
Mm,
lot of successful people is sometimes it's just falling into place, like, and just grabbing the opportunity. Because I think a lot of us, the average people, would not take any opportunity or won't even notice an opportunity if it came their way. So
yeah.
it's having that opportunity handed to us and actually, taking the
Grab
opportunity,
it.
and you never know,
Yeah,
things
yeah,
fall
yeah,
into place when we
yeah.
want it to be, isn't it? So
Oh
like,
no, it wasn't all smooth sailing. All these, 28 years. Many of those twists and turns. I acted was the financial controller of a $2 billion company, and I found out that that wasn't for me because I'm not the person that is really just looking into the nitty gritty of things. I'm not the controlling my side, but I actually see the entire picture.
yeah,
Along.
but it's led you in terms of a path,
Yeah,
in terms of where
yeah,
you
yeah.
are
You
and who you are
choose.
today.
Yeah,
So
then you choose.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
So in regards to, for someone that has never, ran a business, for someone that is working for somebody else at the moment, like, what
Mm.
would your advice be if they are interested in purchasing a business if they don't want to start from scratch?
Yeah, I think good on them because a lot of people actually want to start from scratch because they thought, oh, I'm going to invent this thing, I'm going to do this product, and without doing enough market intelligence or market research, or they thought, oh, this is a great product because when I talked to my family and friends, they all thought it was a great product. But sometimes when people say it's a good product or good service, they are being kind because they're your family and friends. They don't want to, say things to make you feel hurt. But a lot of times, those things, when people say yes, I'll buy them, that doesn't mean that they will buy them because you have to, see that they're putting their money where their mouth is. A lot of people are really good at saying yes, but not actually, taking through.
Mm.
So we were talking about, how small businesses in Australia, 97 point some percentage small businesses in Australia. And about this most current data is actually about 50% of that small business actually fail in 3 years. Previous data was that small business fail in 50% fail in 5 years.
Five
And
years,
now
yeah.
in the last few years during the pandemic, a lot of business got up and failed. So that number may have skewed the whole things, but the latest data is 50%.
So
So
there's many reasons of why businesses fail if you start from scratch. Like, it could be
that's
because
right.
people back in the day are more has more grit in regards to pushing through a business. It could be because of financial situation. It could be not understanding the business properly. It could be many different
Yeah.
factors. But I think
Yeah.
from my understanding, is when you buy over a business, you already have a lot of things in place. Like, you
Yeah.
already
That's
have
right. Processes.
yeah,
Mm.
you already have the
Mhm.
whole uh,
Customers.
yeah, the customer database, right? Like, that's so
That's right.
important. Instead
Customers
of
are
trying to
number
gain
one.
new customers, you already have the
Yeah,
existing customer database,
that's right.
and you
Yeah.
already have the
Mhm.
products there,
Mm.
but it's more of fine tuning it. So this
Mm.
whole concept of buying a business, like,
Yeah.
it's something that anyone can do. It's more of you
Oh,
having
yeah,
to
most
understand,
definitely.
isn't it? Yeah, you
Yeah,
have to
yeah, yeah, and you
understand.
don't have to have a lot of money to do it. There is a mindset thing. Everyone thinks, oh, you have to have a lot of money. Like I have to have one of my clients from Singapore saying they have, quite a lot of money, but they said, oh, I want to buy, looking at how much money can I buy, how much business can I buy with this much money? And I said, well, do you know that you can at least double what you have to actually buy businesses? Because 50% loan to value ratio is acceptable to a lot of lenders, so you can at least get that. And a lot of times vendors are happy to provide a bit of vendor finance to you as well, so if their incentive is to get someone to take the business over to actually run a business really well, then they would be happy to do that. They could even be happy to just stay on for a little while with a certain percentage as well, and then you can, if you're really good in running the business and help them double their business, if they stayed in for 20%, their 20% suddenly increasing in valuation as well. So it's like whether the previous owner wants 100% of a small pie or 20% of a bigger pie. So a lot of times people have to think about it, but for me, it's so obvious you want the 20% of bigger pie, right?
Yeah. So for those of you that don't understand, like, this is starting to sound like really mumbo jumbo.
Mm,
It's understanding. Like, for me, I understand all this because I studied it, and I
mm,
looked into it for a bit. So before we go there, just let you guys know that Cece is actually in Queensland in Australia.
mhm.
So not to be confused that she's in Asia or in the US or in Florida or anywhere. So
Oh, yeah.
she's local. She's in Queensland, Australia.
Mhm.
Now, in this this whole process, right? Like where you don't actually have to have money to buy over a business. You don't actually have to have money to start a business from
Mm,
scratch. Like this
mhm,
is a whole new concept because when I started out with mine, it's like I saved up in order to
mhm. Yep.
branched out my business in order to brand my business.
Mm,
But little did I know back in the day is you actually can start a business by not having anything. It's like,
mm.
providing a
Yeah.
service.
Mm,
It's doing providing a product which you the pre-existing product that you have and growing from there. So in regards to buying a business, right? The venture capital, not venture capital,
mhm,
what was it that you
mm.
said just now?
Private equity.
Yeah,
Private equity. Yeah.
yeah. So how would someone look in a sense of buying a business with no money down?
Well,
Give us three top steps in terms of what
sure,
um
sure.
or
Yeah,
five,
yeah.
3 to 5 steps in terms of how what we can consider for someone that's interested in looking going down that rabbit hole of purchasing a
Mm.
business.
Yeah, I mean, there are an existing step-by-step approach that I'm taking people through my webinars on every week on Saturdays 10 to 11. So
Mm.
people can actually join that to get to a bit more detail. But let's do it from the 64,000
Yeah, give us a kind of a sneak
level.
peek of
The
the
sneak peek,
possibility.
yeah, the
Yeah.
sneak peek of the possibilities is when you first you got to identify who to buy, right? You can't say, hey, I want to buy businesses, and then you like if you do that, you might become a deal slut. Someone gave me that not myself, but somebody else. They said that somebody else was acting as a deal slut because they basically look at any deal that came to them. That is really time consuming. That's not good. This is like when you go looking for a house. You don't just look for any house. If you look for any house, you'll be there forever and
You don't buy
not
the
actually.
yeah, but also you
Yeah,
don't buy the first house you see, right?
no, exactly, exactly. So you actually set a criteria of what, which area you want to go for, how much money you have, what sort of, how much money you're going to borrow from the bank to actually, so your budget is not here, but it's there. So it's instead of $500,000, you could buy a couple $1 million a house because you have $500,000 of deposits. So that's kind of similar. But even if you don't have any money, you can still look for, maybe borrowing money from your family to go as a deposit. So similarly, if you wanted to buy a business, and you can pretty much say, hey, mom, I want to buy this business. Can we,
If you're lucky.
can you lend me some money? Like, not mom. So someone,
Yeah,
some
yeah.
wealthy person that you can say, hey, I want to buy this business, and this is how this business is going to make money. And do you want to be my partner to buy the business, or do you want to lend me some money to buy that business?
Yeah, so it could be a partnership in that sense, but
Yes,
let's look
that could
into
be.
down the
Mhm.
road of vendor finance, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of
That's
people
when you
that
already found a business that you really like, and
yeah,
you think that the business is going to really great, and it's going to make money. So you talk to the vendor who wants to sell the business to you. The vendor could be, in one case, the vendor is a beauty salon owner, and it's going to into politics. All they wanted to do is to sell the business. They don't really care what they don't care about the money because family have money, right? So what they were able to offer is pretty much all of the money that they're buying into the business. It's either vendor finance or it's deferred payment. So
mm,
altogether, the person buying it didn't have to come up with much money at all. Very, very
yep.
small amount.
So buying a business is creating a deal with the vendor. So vendor finance, for those of you that don't know, vendor finance it's where your business pays back the the uh the original seller rather than you having to fork out that amount straight
Initial
away.
acquisition money, yeah,
Yeah.
includes the initial money. So vendor finance is typically over, 12 to 36 months. So, 1 to 3 years. And there are longer vendor finance, but typically 1 to 3 years. And but it's not very common in Australia. A lot of Aussies don't think about it. But I think it's becoming more common because a lot more people are asking for it. But typically brokers don't like it because I'm not sure how they are actually remunerated. If it's vendor finance, whether that vendor finance bid is actually they get a portion of it at all. A lot of times, if you're dealing with a broker, you might not be able to get to vendor finance discussions. But if you're dealing with a seller one-on-one directly, then the chances are a lot higher, which is why you should reach out to your network initially, cold reach out just to let them know, hey, I'm interested in buying a business. Do you know anyone who's interested in selling? And you never know, someone actually might come back to say, hey, I know this guy is wanting to sell and they haven't, engaged a broker yet. That would be the best scenario that you're into. And you never know, like everyone has hundreds of connections themselves, right? In their phone book. And you can just do it like that. And don't be afraid, don't be afraid to tell the world that you're looking for businesses to buy, because sometimes we have an imposter syndrome to say, hey, I haven't run a business. Why should I why can I tell the world that I'm buying a business, But if you don't do it, you'll never get there. This is like the first time, right? First
It's
time.
like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
like buying a
yeah,
first house or buying a first car, right? You
exactly.
don't know until you
You
purchase
start
it and go
somewhere.
through that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like I
Mm.
understand that, it may be daunting, but it's also educating yourself in terms of what to look for, in terms of what kind of questions you want to ask or you should
Yeah,
ask. Or
diligence.
it's like, going through you
Mm,
because you've got a
mm,
program as well
mhm.
where
Yeah, they can
you
learn.
can
Mm,
educate people in terms of the process, the right process and the
that's right.
direct
Yeah,
process instead
yeah.
of not being sure of what to do in regards to that
Mm,
process of buying over a business. Now,
so
is it a possibility of building wealth with buying businesses? Can we buy multiple
100%.
businesses?
100%. That is actually the quickest way to build wealth rather than start your own business. Because if you think about it, 50% of businesses fail in the first few years. And the historical data this is like years of historical data that says by year 10, 80% or 70% of businesses would have failed. If you bought a business that is like 10 years old, you basically, ridden yourself 30% of the risk of running any business, right? So really, if you buy businesses like that, multiple businesses like that, and considering that there is a big wealth transfer in globally, basically, because people are getting older, right?
Mm.
What they call themselves, the older generation. Anyway, oh God.
Retirees?
No, 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 they're not retired yet. They wanted to retire, but they haven't retired yet because they have their business, they're running their business, they want to retire, but they haven't sold their businesses. So there are loads of businesses out there for people to actually go and acquire. So say if you have, let's say a lawn mowing business, there will be a lot of lawn mowing businesses out there. There will be thousands of lawn mowing businesses out there that has very, an aging owner who's ready to retire, but he or she hasn't found a buyer. And that's the thing, like 80% of Australian businesses never get sold. So you got to find those ones that are, ready to retire, but they haven't retired yet. So you go and talk to them and say, hey, I have a lawn mowing business in Sunnybank. I want, you are a lawn mowing business in, let's say, 8 Mile Plains. Can we combine forces? Let's merge together. You're ready to retire, but if we can find 10 lawn mowing businesses like you and me, then we can actually become a much bigger business. And then we can all retire, because when we're a bigger business, when you're $4 million, $5 million in profit, EBITDA in profit, then the private equities are getting interested.
Mm.
I don't know if you remember, JT interviewed someone who's in a, can't remember what industry. It was like a really like trade business. I think it's to do with laundromat business, and he basically sold his business for 140 million pounds. So it's
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that
conceivable. Yeah,
interview.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
UK one.
Mm.
It is conceivable that if you have a number of smaller business banging together, the higher the profit, the higher the multiple will be when you exit.
Yeah. So here's
So
the thing, like those of you that don't know, here's the thing. Like there's many ways of purchasing a business. Like you can purchase a business where you merge it so that you've got you can scale the business by purchasing business and merging it, right? And
mm,
there's other ways where you just purchase business where we had which is in from different industry kind of thing. But it's like where Adam Coffey, where I started reading this whole concept about buying and selling is
mm,
he, as you mentioned as well, he started with the laundromat as well. He's
mm,
buying all these laundromats and putting it all together and
yeah,
growing it right into one
50
particular,
something.
yeah, into growing it
Right?
into one
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
big business. And in the end, if you decide
yeah,
you want to sell it, then by all means, it's easy to sell that
yeah.
whole big status rather than individual ones. But
Mm,
yes, you're right you're right in that department where there's a lot of older, more mature owners where they
yeah,
just had enough of the business, and they don't have
mm,
any kids to take over the business. So they're interested in selling it.
yeah,
But it's just people out there are not aware that the business, is for sale. Maybe the
yeah,
brokers didn't do a good job,
yeah.
maybe it's not
Information.
advertised properly, right? So
No,
it's asking the right questions, and it's just,
yeah,
throwing yourself out there and not being shy in terms of just saying, "Oh, I'm interested." Or maybe walking into a store, because that was what I did. I walked
yeah,
to a store and I just gave the store a call and I'm like, "Oh, are you interested in selling?" They're like, "Oh, yeah, we are actually."
yeah,
But
mhm,
I didn't go through a broker. I didn't go through
yeah,
an advertising thing. It's
yeah,
more of
yeah.
sometimes just asking that question.
That's right. Just ask the question, definitely. Yeah, yeah. And but sometimes you have to be like you got to find the owner to ask the question because it is sometimes delicate because the owner doesn't want the staff to know sometimes. They still want to show the face to the staff that yeah, the business will continue steadily going continue forward when they are actually thinking about selling. So that's why a lot of times if you can get to the owner, that will be a really good place to go. If you go and speak to the staff, you may not get there. Yeah. That-
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, all
Now,
right. Yeah.
any big tips in terms of what to consider for those of the listeners out there that has never even considered buying a business? Is there
Mm.
any one of the biggest advice that you would, give them?
Yeah, I think first is actually to consider buying a business.
Mm,
And secondly is to actually think about what you want to do, what is your end goal for buying that business. And therefore that will lead you to what sort of business to look at. And then when you find the business is to really just do what to do in terms of due diligence, right? Due diligence is such an important thing. 'Cause a lot of times I think about 80-90% of the deals fall through because of, lack of due diligence or finding things that the owner didn't tell the buyer. I think that's about 50%. But then there are others like you find, something like a legal battle is happening, but you didn't know about it. Then you'll be in trouble if you bought the business. There's a lot of other things that you have to consider, like legal, financial, marketing, sales, and all of those things when you buy a new business. It's really making sure that whatever the owner told you, you are able to actually sustain that level of
mm,
profit going forward because ultimately you are buying the future maintainable cash flow of the business rather than what happened in the past. So, accountants will tell you, most accountants will tell you, I'm a fellow of CPA, by the way. I'm a deputy president for CPA in Queensland. So I shouldn't say accountants or something, but a lot of the old style accountants would say, oh, historical. Was I always say, hey, look at what is the maintainable earning for the future because his history could be really good guy, but it's actually not going to be the same in the future because let's face it, the market is changing on a day by day, and technology is becoming more and more important. AI, so a lot of the business are no longer. You can't count on what happened last year to think that'll be the same next year. So
yeah,
that's
it's not
mm,
all about buying a business and that's it. It's buying a
mm,
business in the thought of wanting to scale it and
yeah,
make it go further. But
Yeah.
there's many ways where you can buy a business where it's your forte. So let's say you're very good in cooking, you could buy over a restaurant or a cafe. Um, or if someone just wants to invest in a business that they have never done before, like let's say, me buying over a mowing company and I have no idea how to work a lawnmower.
I would
So,
not recommend that. By
so
yourself. If you
yeah,
wanted to buy a mowing company, you gotta go in it with somebody else because
yeah,
you have to have the expertise. So this is the case in any business. Like, when you talk about the restaurant business, the person is very good at running restaurant business, then they can go into a restaurant business. But so many of restaurants actually fail, right? Restaurants change owners all the time, and the first owner typically don't actually make money. It's the third owner that might make some money. So it's same as hotels and things like that. So for you to actually go into a brand new business, you really need to have someone that around you that are really good at it. So
yeah.
surround
So
yourself
it's
with the
it's
right advisors.
I mean,
Oh,
like even if you're good at if you're good at cooking and you run that business, like that's only one side of it. It's also finding,
yeah.
maybe a business coach that will be
Mm,
able to help your business grow rather than trying to figure things out yourself. Maybe
mm,
it's finding, marketing people to market it properly where you can expand and grow. It's finding
mm,
different ways of trying to scale that business. But like there's many potentials of buying over a business comparatively to starting a business, as
mm,
we actually touch base where you already have the customer base that is already there for you to use
mm.
and monetize
Yeah. That is something.
before even
Yeah.
growing it into new clients, right?
But importantly is the customers will stay. Like for a lot of the accounting firms, for example, if you bought an accounting firm of an accountant that moves somewhere else, there is a risk that their clients might move with them. So you've got to make sure that the clients will stay. That is the really important thing because that drives your revenue, right?
Mm,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
So there
All
are
right.
certain risks that we know when you buy a.
Always going to be risk,
Yeah,
always
yeah,
going to be risk,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
it's making
Mm.
the right
How to.
calculative risk, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
knowing where to go and what to do, and it's, as
Mm,
we say, is the due diligence. And due diligence is investigating, is doing your own investigation in regards to see if this
mm,
is actually the right
yeah.
fit for you.
But you don't know what you don't know. That is the thing. A lot of people don't know what they don't know. So it's always good to actually find someone who's an expert in something. For me, for example, if I was to do a legal due diligence on a business, I wouldn't say I'm going to do the legal due diligence. I will find a lawyer to help with that. So
Mm,
that's what I'm trying to say is that surround yourself with the best people that could help you to achieve your outcome, whoever that is, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's the only way to go without making any silly mistakes, I should say.
exactly. Not make mistakes
Unnecessary,
out of happiness.
unnecessary mistakes. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna end this. I'm gonna end this interview with this question: How do you, or how do you run your day with comparing it with the difference between business and your personal life? Like, I'm assuming you're a very busy person, so with running a business, your own business throughout the week. Like I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you've got a session where you've got time for yourself and time for business and time for family
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. What's your
Mm.
advice to all these business owners out there in regards to how they can, um, block their times or work around their times for themselves, for their business, and for family?
Yeah, yeah. I always say it's like, time is like a sponge, right? If you squeeze it, you'll squeeze out a bit more. So I'm, for family, I always set to the most extent possible. Every week there are two dinners. We're Monday, Friday dinners. We want to have that as a family dinner. It's like unless there is something that we can't control. That is clockwork every Friday.
Always a family dinner,
Yeah,
hey,
every two
twice
times
a
a.
week.
Yeah, twice a week at least. Yeah, so but then the other times, we call on each other for help, and family is like that, right? You
Mm.
help each other out there. For
For
myself.
yourself, yeah.
For myself, yes, yes. I actually, it's funny, like all my drive to somewhere, I always listen to something, whether it's a podcast, or I think for me, the relaxation thing is I listen to some of those the Chinese stories, like on video, on the audio.
Audio.
So I driving, I either listen to podcast or listen to
Which
a
is not related to business, yes? Just
no,
something that
no,
takes
it's a
your mind
novel.
off
It's a
completely.
novel. Yeah, yeah. So
Ah,
I like a long series of novels that went back, they like went back to the days in the ancient China and those sort of things. So completely different from work. It's just a different mindset. Just relaxation for me there. Yeah. So then everything else is work, I suppose, for me. But then, the thing about, okay, when you enjoy it, when you love what you do, it's not really work,
it's
right?
not really, yeah, exactly, exactly. No, that is so true. That is
Yeah,
so
you get
true.
the positive energy you get from, meeting people, from, for me, every Saturday morning, from teaching people about the buy sell business side, and, seeing people from Singapore, from US, from even UK joining, from New Zealand, all around Australia joining and learning about it, and then answering questions that they have about their current deals. That all it's a lot of fun. And then they have a lot of them have one-on-one coaching with me as well. So
Mm.
really go deep into what they do in their business. But this is just a new thing that I started actually. I only started this thing in May 11th. So it's only been a couple of months. And week 12 now. Yeah, week 12. But I've always been doing these sort of things for my clients in buying and selling businesses, but it's more one-on-one. I've never actually put it together into a program as such. But this is great. I have to thank Paul Botley, who invited me to speak in Singapore, and he said, "Oh, you should sell a program." I said, "Okay, what program do I sell?"
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like, first it's more of you loving what you do, and then,
yeah, yeah.
and then the more you get people's interest, like with you,
Mm,
all these industries, they all have commonalities, no matter which part of the world you are at. And
yeah.
then you have to do that extra research in terms of understanding the legality of your local country or your
Mm,
local state. So,
mm.
it's okay to get a coach from another country. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter,
yeah.
where you're listening to this from. It's okay to get a mentor or a coach for
Mm.
locally or internationally, because at the end of the day, it's all quite similar, but you also
Yeah,
need to be
yeah.
aware of the legality just to protect you as business owners, no matter which part of the world you are at. So,
Mm,
it's been a great journey, to know you, Cece, and to listen about, all this thing about the buying and selling, and with your progress, as well as all of us business owners, we always grow and we always continue to grow. So if
yeah.
anyone is interested in learning more about Cece's program, or learning more about the whole concept of buying and selling, I'm gonna leave some info on the description, so you can get in touch with CC if you have any
Mm.
questions whatsoever, or if you are interested in just tuning in to educate yourself in terms of the whole world of buying and selling business.
Yeah, and to say in the group there are 4 people who are actually employees right now, who are employees of big company, who are actually learning and wanting to acquire businesses. So
Mm.
you don't have to be, an entrepreneur yourself to start somewhere. You just make a
it's
start.
it starts with an interest. I think it
Yeah.
always starts with an interest, and then you can always, decide either there and then, or later on down the future, but at least you're educated in that sense. So,
Mm.
Cece, thank you for coming on and
Yeah.
sharing your knowledge and your insights for this
Right?
whole world of buying and selling business. But
Yeah.
yeah, I shall catch you all later, and yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully, you enjoyed today's podcast. If you'd like me to be on your podcast or want to work with me, check out my web link on www.solopreneur2entrepreneur.com/link. That is www.solopreneur2entrepreneur.com/link.